and I did it. So hello, everybody. I'm so glad you're with me tonight. And we're going to start with the snippet first, and then we'll pray, if I remember. So if I don't, just raise your hand. Our snippet tonight will be from Judges. Now, the reason I'm doing that is because the fall semester that we were in, we did Judges the whole time. I was only going to do an overview, and it took the whole fall season to get finished it. But what was the reason why we studied Judges when we were supposed to be studying Ruth? Anybody remember why? During the Judges. And we wanted to see how really terrible, awful, heinous. I love that word. I use it at least once in every paper I write because I like that word, heinous. It just means awful. And so it was an awful period of time. And you need to know what it was like so that when you see and read the book of Ruth, you say, wow, what a difference. It's like having a diamond in a box, with the dark velvet in the background. And what happens when a diamond's set against that kind of background? It really shines, doesn't it? That's why they do it. The jeweler does it. And so you want to realize that Ruth is our diamond with the dark background of Judges. So tonight what I'm going to do is a judge that we did not cover last time, and that's Samson. I also want to talk to you about what we're going to see in Ruth. You ever been to a concert? Have you ever been to the Philadelphia Academy of Music? And they have concerts there, and they have sheet music. And everybody has their sheet music, and you have the violins that come in at a certain time, and they watch their timing from the sheet music, and you have the trombones and the cello and all the different instruments that are going to come in, and they all have their bits and parts, but as they come in together, it creates this wonderful concert, and I just love the music when you listen to it all together. Well, the story of Ruth that we're going to be looking at tonight, the part especially tonight, but all through Ruth, is the sheet music, because we're going to have our instruments come in just at the right time. The instruments are Deuteronomy, Genesis, Judges, even Numbers, and of course Ruth itself, and they're all going to play a part, and they're all going to work together and provide us with a beautiful concert. And hello, how are you? Okay, we missed you last week, Leanne. Now tonight, even though you're probably going to catch me swaying, I know, people said that. Most people said they never noticed it. I've been doing it for 18 years, and I never noticed it. So, we did miss you last week, but because we're recording, I'm going to stick close to the front. I won't be interweaving, going around the table like I usually do. So everybody's going to be happy about that, especially those who are Baptists who sit in the back row. Yes. And so we're going to study Ruth tonight, and we're going to start with the story of Samson. So get your papers out concerning, and it'll be page 2. Do you all have that? The vows, right. And it's page 2. Yeah. Did you notice that I gave you the page numbers this time? We're going to try to remember, because somebody wrote to me and said it would help them on the video if they would know the page numbers. So you're going to get out the Nazirite vow, and we're going to be studying Samson in order to see what the time period of Judges is like. And here's what you're going to do. You're going to read the Nazirite vow from Numbers 6. Got that? And then you're going to read from the Samson story, Judges 14, and you're going to see the instructions to Manoah's wife concerning the vow, or really the Nazirite vows, that she and her son are going to follow. So you're going to compare, and what I want you to do is you can draw lines, or you can do what I do, and that is use your colors, your Crayolas, Twistables, and you're going to discuss with each other those things that are the same in both of them. Now, what you're going to find out is one of the things, there are three things that are the same. Three things that are the same. One of the things that's the same is going to be a little different. 0 to it's the same with Denise. Denise is going to laugh at me a lot. No. She always did. Okay, so you're going to read them, and you're going to read it together. So let's see how we're going to do this. What you have to do is come here before Madalena does and sit in the first two seats. But
she came with us.
Yeah,
I was struggling.
I'll tell you what. You and Vera, Madalena and Vera, because and then you two together. Joy and Leanne, would you be together?
Yeah.
And that messes up people on this side. Leanne, where is Tron? We need an even number.
No, he messed up. I told him.
Okay, so maybe it'll be better if we do you three together. There we go. And then Wendy and those of you who are at home, we welcome you, but you're going to have to do it on your own. Okay, go ahead. Read back and forth quietly, yet loud enough. And so you're going to be looking at page 2. You're going to compare the Nazirite vow with what happens in the Samson story, and find three things that are in the Nazirite vow
6 to 4 out and 5 to 8.
that are the same in the Samson story. And there's one that's just a little bit changed. The angel seems to be zeroing in on one part of it. Okay, go ahead and read. Have a good time.
Wine or strong drink. He shall drink no vinegar made from wine or strong drink. He shall not drink any juice of grapes or eat grapes, fresh or dry. All the days of his separation he shall eat nothing that is produced by the great plant, not even the seeds or the skin.
All the days of his vow of separation no razor shall touch his head, until the time is completed for which he separates himself to the Lord. He shall be holy. He shall let the locks of his head grow long. All the days that he separates himself to the Lord, he shall not go near a dead body, not even for his father or for his mother, for his brother or sister. If they die, shall make himself unclean, because his separation to God is on his head. All the days of his separation, he is holy to the Lord.
There was a certain man of Zorah of the tribe of the Danites, whose name was Manoah, and his wife was barren and had no children. And the angel of the Lord appeared to the woman and said to her, Behold, you are barren and have not borne children, but you shall conceive and bear a son. Therefore be careful and drink no wine or strong drink, and eat nothing unclean, for behold, you shall conceive and bear a son. No razor shall come upon his head, for the child shall be a Nazirite to God from the womb.
So use drawing lines or your colors to match up one thing with the other.
Okay.
There's going to be three things.
You said 3
So
things.
find it out.
Smoke, drink, don't drink, rather. Right? And separation. What did you come up with?
No razor. No razor.
Oh, that would be, okay. Oh, I see what you're looking for.
What are we looking for? Just
Well,
there's no grapes or anything from the grapevine, right? So no cutting of hair.
No,
You
but
can't go
over
near
here.
dead, right?
Yeah, but over here, they didn't say that though.
Now
About
that's
the,
our
We're just
little
doing
thing
more-
that's a little different.
Yeah.
So zero in on
this
that.
side didn't say that, about the dead being.
Yeah, but
Here.
it does say.
But it. Oh yeah. Okay, over on this side, she's barren. That's not mentioned on that side either. And another difference is too. On this side, he's talking to Moses, but they never mentioned. Well, and at least on this side, they was talking about his wife. But you know the interesting thing was there was a certain man's word, his name wasn't over. They never mentions the wife's name.
Yeah, did you ever notice that? She's never named.
Yeah,
She's seems to be more important than Manoah.
absolutely.
Yeah, so I'll have to think about that and see what a literary reason for that.
May I guess?
You can guess.
I think the literary reason is because remember the Old Testament is shadows of the New Testament because that's the substance. So I'm thinking everything always points to Christ. So I think the reason why she's not mentioned is because it's him.
It's who's.
In a sense, okay, because she, and what do you know what else I got from the story? How the angel of the Lord appeared, just like the angel of the Lord appeared to Mary.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is definitely
it all goes together.
A prefigure of
now
what
Mary
goes.
she wasn't barren. She just was a virgin.
Right. So, but it's on the same.
But it's on the
type
same
of thing.
level.
Right. Excellent point, because that's exactly what, when Luke portrays the fact that she's a virgin and everything, he's looking back to the Old Testament stories like this. Okay, guys, what are name one thing that's exactly the same or almost exactly the same?
No razor.
No razor. Gonna cut. Right.
No wine or strong drink.
No wine or strong drink. And then the third one is little, something zeroed in on. What is that one?
Mine was, this is probably not it, but I put, with either a man or a woman makes a special vow, and there's a woman and a man. Yeah.
Okay. Hey, that's good. Yes, it's either a man or a woman. And the fact that it's Manoah's wife as well as Samson that are a part of that vow. Yes.
You also have,
what's
to the Lord, to the Lord, to the Lord, and then to God.
Okay.
On the opposite, it's very strongly emphasized that you're separating yourself to, not from something, to God. So
that's a good point. Right. What's another
this other
thing?
one mentioned about the mother and the father and the sister. Like, don't even go near anybody at all. Where the other one didn't mention that.
Right, it doesn't mention it, but what does it mention? And why aren't you allowed to go near? What aren't you allowed as a Nazarite? Dead.
Yeah.
Why? It tells you that in the thing. Because you'd be unclean. Dead people are unclean. But what does it say in the right column? Don't eat anything unclean. Now, that's just slightly different, isn't it? Because if you eat something, of course you're touching it. You're touching it. So it is, it's assumed that you don't eat anything unclean when he says, the vow says, don't touch anything. But the angel has now zeroed in on this, and there is a reason. A lot of times when we read something like this, and it's just a little changed, and you wonder what's going on, just know that the author knows his stuff. And he's going to bring out something even at the very beginning that's going to be touched upon in the story. So know that we're going to see something about eating something unclean in the story rather than just touching it.
You also have the Nazarite is separating himself, and this is a parent who's separating a child.
Okay. In a Nazarite vow, what is she saying? You what?
Choose.
You choose. It's volunteering. In this case, is there any choice? No. So God takes something that was a choice and he says, listen, I want this boy set apart. And who else? The mother set apart for a special job to do. Now, that may play into the rest of the story, because if Samson isn't choosing and it's being placed on him, what might occur?
He will rebel.
Right. There's not going to be as much dedication in what he does, is there? But God has chosen him. Didn't have to rebel, but he does. So take note of that. Okay? Here's the vow. Here's the fact that it's not a voluntary thing in the Samson story. It is a command. They are to be Nazarites. It can be a man or a woman, which makes it really neat because we have both a man and a woman here. They're both under those stringent orders from number 6. And we have this little change which alerts us to know something's going to happen that we're going to see concerning that change. Now, the next page, which is page 3, is going to be the vow again, which I want you to read again, because I want you to get real familiar with it, and then excerpts from Samson's life. And the reason I took these excerpts is a lot of times what happens is, what part of Samson's story do you remember?
Hair being cut.
Right. That's the story. In fact, that's probably the only story that's captured in the Sunday school material as you grew up, was the Samson story with the hair getting cut off, right? It starts right from the very beginning. The problems start from the beginning, but you have to read it very closely and carefully in order to check out and see what he's really doing all along. Starts out little, starts out slow, and then it gets bigger and bigger. He starts out marrying somebody who's not an Israelite. He marries a Philistine. Then when she dies, he goes just to prostitutes. Even before Delilah. So everything gets bigger and bigger, and you're going to see that. So that's what I want you to do next, is you're going to compare on page 3 the vow again with the excerpts from Samson's life and see, even though the author doesn't come out right and say, this is wrong, this is what he did, he makes allusions. And you're supposed to know the vow so well because you've turned off CSI, HGTV, Law and Order, and you've practically memorized Torah because it's that important to you. And so you would know exactly what's going on in the Samson story. So go ahead, read it, and compare. Figure out what things are going on in Samson's life. And that is on page 3, the 2 columns. And of course, I've used my colored pencils again, which is a good thing to use. So what I did was I used red for one thing he did wrong. Keep going. You can ignore me, please. I'm talking to them. I'm talking to you.
I can start where you want me to stop at. Doesn't matter. I'll stop at line. Okay, whatever. Okay.
When you get tired.
I like reading.
Don't forget to read the vow.
And Samson went down with his father.
Oh, wait. You got to read the vow first.
Isn't this the same vow?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll read the vow.
Thank you.
And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the people of Israel, say to them, when either a man or a woman makes a special vow, the vow of the Nazarite, to separate himself to the Lord, he shall separate himself from wine and strong drink. He shall drink no vinegar made from wine or strong drink, and shall not drink any juice of grapes or eat grapes, fresh or dry. All the days of his separation he shall eat nothing that is produced by the grapevine, not even the seeds or the skins. All the days of his vow of separation no razor shall touch his head, until the time is completed for which he separates himself to the Lord. He shall be holy. He shall let the locks of hair of his head grow long. All the days that he separates himself to the Lord, he shall not go near a dead body, not even his father or his mother, or brother or sister. If they die, shall he make himself unclean, because his separation to God is on his head. All the days of his separation he is holy to the Lord.
Then Samson went down with his father and mother, and they came to the vineyards of Timnah. And behold, a young lion came toward him roaring. And the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon him, and tore the lion in pieces. But he did not tell his father or his mother what he had done. After some days he returned. And he turned aside to see the carcass of the lion, and behold, there was a swarm of bees in the body of the lion, and honey. He scraped it out into his hands and went on, eating as he went. And he came to his father and mother and gave some to them, and they ate. But he did not tell them that he had scraped the honey from the carcass of the lion.
I see Genesis.
Yeah, I see it too. His father went down to the woman, and Samson prepared a drinking feast there, for so the young men used to do. After this, he loved the woman in the valley of Sorek. Grapes, that's what that means. His name was Delilah. When Delilah pressed Samson, no, more, right? When Delilah pressed Samson hard with her words, he said, "A razor has never come upon my head, for I have been a Nazarite to God. If my head is shaved, then my strength will leave me, and I shall become weak and be like any other man." Then Delilah called the Philistines, "Come up," and she called them in and had him shave off the 7 locks of his head. And the Philistines seized him and gouged out his eyes and brought him down to Gaza and bound him with a bronze shackle. This is really amazing. Because I did notice one thing. Here's a 7 locks.
Ah, very good. Point that out as we're going along, because I want you to point that out. Because
Yeah, see, 7 locks. Oh, this is loaded, okay? Took the unclean food. Then he gave it to his parents. He didn't even tell them where he got them from. It was unclean, which made them unclean too in the sense of the word.
yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah. Okay, finally went down. He just really just messed up. He was messing up all over the place. He gave away his strength. He literally just gave it to them. Here, take it.
Yeah.
Just like you said in Genesis. Like Adam and Eve, they just gave away their glory to Satan.
Well, and she gave him and he ate.
Yeah, exactly.
Good.
Oh my goodness.
Oh.
He loved the woman the great.
Okay, guys, you probably saw some things right away. I'm really pleased with what I'm hearing down the line here. And so let's start with the first one on the Samson's life side. Somebody asked me why they had to read again the vow. Because in this class, we've learned that what do you do with scripture or any text? You read it, and reread it. Because so how many times do you see the second or third time you say, I didn't see that the first time? Okay, so we do that in this class. Now, what is the author alluding to when Samson goes down with his father and mother and they come to the vineyards of Timnah?
There's wine in there.
Ha yes.
Go
ahead, Lynn.
In verse 3 on the vow, it says he shall separate himself. It's not just not to drink it. But
Yeah.
Separation is like not
going here,
not even going. It's very, very good. I mean, you can't even eat the seeds or the skin of the grape. Just nothing. Not even grape juice. Okay, good. So
why did they go there?
Well,
What's
what's going on with this father-mother thing? Mom and Dad are listening to whom? Yeah, they're listening to Samson. Believe me. And as a mom and dad, some of us have been moms and dads, and it's so easy. It's when we love our kids to just, we don't want to make waves, do we? Especially with Samson. Okay, the next thing was?
He goes to the carcass of the lion.
Yes. Okay.
With his hands.
Yeah. It's great. So he's. So what did the carcass make the honey? Unclean. So his eating the honey was in reference to what?
But first he
What did we hear about
First he turned it aside, so he had to touch it. And then he ate something and made himself unclean in that way.
Okay, I think him turning aside means that he turned away from the road that he was going on, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Exactly.
Okay. What about this eating the honey? What does that remind you of? We just read it. a couple of minutes ago.
That
Not supposed to
eat
eat anything
anything unclean.
Right. Remember the angel specifies, do not eat anything unclean. And we saw that that was a little bit more direct, than just don't touch anything. And here it is. He's eating something unclean. Go ahead, Lenny.
By not telling his mother where he made her violate her
Right,
vow.
right. Now, of course, in the Old Testament, if you don't know that you're doing something wrong, if it's unintentional like this, there's no consequence. But if she found out later that she had done this, she would have probably had to do something to make herself clean again, some sort of religious thing.
Well,
But-
that would have been broken. She would have had to shave her head and go before a priest. And
Yeah, that's true. Right. Okay. Anybody else what's the next thing?
Drinking.
For the wedding, the drinking feast. Now, in our own English translations, we always translate it feast, but in the Hebrew, it's always drinking feast. This word for feast is always a drinking feast, and it wasn't Coca-Cola. Okay. So so there's that allusion then back to he's doing again. And who's making the drinking feast? Samson. Who should have been doing it? Who's supposed to be doing it? Who do you think was going to do it by reading this text?
His father?
Yeah, his father goes with him, But this might be one of those times that Dad said, I'm not going to be any part of this. But who knows?
Out with the vineyards, so.
Yeah, he's in those vineyards again. Yes, did you notice that? Where does Delilah live? Valley of the Grapes, right. And then finally the last part.
7 locks of his head.
Did you see the 7?
Yeah.
Okay, so he, on his own, he gets the locks and he does 7 braids. Oh, isn't he religious? You ever see Christians go around or people go around with a big cross on them? I'm a Christian. And they live like hell? That's, I think, what's happening. Why would he choose 7? Why would he choose 7?
The number of perfection.
Yeah, it's God's number. It's the number of perfection. And so he knows this, so he's going to make the 7 locks, and he's going to look like, he's a godly guy, but is he? Nope. Okay, good. And it's real interesting because Samson keeps seeing things all the time. Whatever he saw, he wanted, didn't he? And then what happens in the end? He saw nothing. Right. And that's interesting. Okay, so now we're going to start the Bible study, and I get to pray. So let's pray. Father in heaven, did I pray already?
No.
No, good. Father in heaven, thank you. Thank you so much for this Bible study, this group of people who want to know your word. We praise your name because your word is so intricate and so fascinating and really catches us up into what you would want us to do. Father, this is what we want to know. We want to know why we shouldn't do the bad and why we should do the good. And your word gives us the wisdom that we need in order to make discerning decisions. And so help us to be discerning. Help us not to be like a Samson. We want to be your people. In Christ's precious name, amen. Okay, now we're going into Ruth, aren't we? Yay! Okay, now I know you said you're going to say, especially somebody here, but we read this play last week. We are going to treat the book
Throw
of.
under the bus.
We are going to treat. I said you're not sitting together next time. I got the 3 wisecracks right here. 3 musketeers. Okay, and Bob just sits there quietly and smiles. We're going to peel it like an onion, and so each week we're going to come back and we're going to peel chapter 1 like an onion. We're going to take each week and really till you know it so well that here's what I want you to be able to do. Lie in bed at night when you can't sleep, when you're worried about everything that's going on in your lives, when you're crushed in your spirit, and you're going to be able to think through the book of Ruth because that's the way I do it. You know, I wake up in the middle of the night and the cares of the world come, and it's like, okay, what am I teaching this week? And I go through it, and all of a sudden I'm asleep, and it's great. So you're going to be able to do that. And so what I want you to do is read the story again, and we're going to have a narrator. So since you weren't here last week, Leanne, you can be our narrator. And I never remember who I asked the last time. So I'm going to start with the people who weren't here last week, which is Wendy. Would you be our Naomi? And Dee, would you be Ruth and Orpah if Orpah is a part of it? And I need the women of Bethlehem. So, Madalena, would you be the women of Bethlehem? It's a short part. Now, this is what you're going to look for, because I always have you looking for something. And this time, what you're going to look for is the historical setting and the geographical setting of the story of Ruth. So those two things you're going to look for. I also want you to look at, although we're not going to discuss it tonight till next week, what is the townswoman's reaction to Ruth? Just take note of it. Okay? Now, go ahead, narrator.
In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land. And a man of Bethlehem in Judah went to sojourn in the fields of Moab, he and his wife and his 2 sons. The name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife Naomi. And the names of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem in Judah. They went into the fields of Moab and remained there. But Elimelech, the husband of Naomi, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. These took Moabite wives. The name of one was Orpah, and the name of the other Ruth. They lived about 10 years, and both Mahlon and Chilion died, so that the woman was left without her 2 sons and her husband. Then she arose with her daughters-in-law to return from the country of Moab, for she had heard in the fields of Moab that the Lord had visited his people and had given them bread. So she set out from the place where she was with her 2 daughters-in-law, and they went on the way to return to the land of Judah.
Go return each of you to her mother's house. May the Lord deal kindly with you as you have dealt with the dead and with me. The Lord grant that you may find rest, each of you in the house of her husband.
Then she kissed them, and they lifted up their voices and wept.
Now we will return with you to your people.
Return, my daughters. Why will you go with me? Have I yet sons in my womb that may become your husbands? Return, my daughters. Go your way, for I am too old to have a husband. If I should say I have hope, even if I should have a husband this night, and should bear sons, would you therefore wait till they were grown? Would you therefore refrain from marrying? No, my daughters, for it is exceedingly bitter to me for your sake that the hand of the Lord has gone out against me.
Then they lifted up their voices and wept again. And Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clung to her.
See, your sister-in-law has returned to her people and to her gods. Return after your sister-in-law.
Do not urge me to leave you or to return from following you. For where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there will I be buried. May the Lord do so to me, and more also, if anything but death parts me from you.
And when Naomi saw that she was determined to go with her, she said no more. So the 2 of them went on until they came to Bethlehem. And when they came to Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred because of them.
Is this Naomi?
Do not call me Naomi, call me Mara, for the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me. I went away full, and the Lord has returned me empty. Why call me Naomi when the Lord has testified against me, and the Almighty has brought calamity upon me?
So Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law, with her, who returned from the fields of Moab. And they came to Bethlehem at the beginning of a barley harvest.
Okay, great. Okay, what's the historical setting?
In the days of the judges.
The days of the judges. Good. The author's going to really pinpoint, though, what period even of the Judges. I think that we're going to see from what we're going to look at in the introduction that you're going to know where in the book of Judges this probably occurred. But there's also, what's the geographical? Bethlehem. Those two incidents, remember that. It's during the period of the Judges, and it's in Bethlehem that are going to, this introduction is going to give us flashbacks into something that happened in the past. Now, yes, the setting is, the historical setting is the Judges. Let's look another way at how the author tells us it's during the time of Judges. So I want you to go to page 5. Okay, you see 3 columns, and you see at the top it says the Bethlehem trilogy. So we have 3 stories here and 3 columns. What you're going to do is you're going to look back at Judges 17 on this paper. Does anybody remember what Judges 17 was all about? Those of you who were with us last in the fall?
It's about one versus
Yes, one of the yes, and it's Moses this time. It's remember, it's about Micah. And we're going to discuss that in a minute, what the story was about. So these 2 stories are part of the Bethlehem trilogy, and you'll see why it's called the Bethlehem trilogy. It will be linked, these 2 stories, Judges 17 and 19, will be linked to Ruth with common words or phrases. So what I'm going to ask you to do is read again to each other, like you did the last time, and find the common words or phrases, things that are alike. Maybe it may not be the exact words, but they're alike. Go ahead and read it to each other. The trilogy. And you're going to read it and find the common elements in all 3, because there's a reason why it's called the Bethlehem trilogy. Go ahead and read it to yourselves. Or some of you, I found out, are watching it together with somebody else. That's really neat.
Now there came about in those days when there was no king in Israel, that there was a certain Levite who took a concubine for himself in Bethlehem in Judah. This concubine runs away, but comes back to her father in Bethlehem, and after some time the Levite comes to Bethlehem to bring her back. The father-in-law persuades the Levite to stay in Bethlehem for several days. Finally, the man was not willing to stay in Bethlehem, so he rose and departed.
Now it came about in the days when the judges governed that there was a famine in the land, and a certain man of Bethlehem in Judah went to sojourn in the land of Moab. Now, what are we looking for again?
The same common elements in all 3 of these stories.
Well, it's Bethlehem and Judah and all.
Yeah.
Now, see, okay, young man.
Now
and here was
is the first word of all.
And here was a certain Levite. So the young man could be possibly the certain Levite in this one. And then now came about there was a family and another certain man. But it's a certain man
is departing. Then the man
it's a certain
departed.
man.
So he arose and departed.
And this is a certain Levite.
And then he went to sojourn.
Okay.
So that's departed, really.
From Bethlehem.
You're right, Denise.
So
yeah, family of Judah. He came from Judah, this guy.
Okay, Bethlehem and Judah, right. Right. Do you see why it's called the Bethlehem trilogy? These are the last 2 stories, if you remember, in the book of Judges. And the first story in Judges 17, and for those of you who don't know the story, it's all right. I just want you to get this element. It's about a man called Micah. Do you remember him? What does Micah do at the very beginning of the story? He steals silver, right, from his mother. And what does his mother do? Puts a what?
Well, he's returning it. So.
Right, but after she has done what?
Cursed them.
Curse the thief. So he gets scared. He believes in curses and things like that. So he gives it back to her, and she says, "Oh, bless the Lord." He says, "I'm going to use all this for Yahweh." And what does she do with the silver?
She takes just part of it.
She just takes part of it and hands it to,
The silversmith to make it.
well, Micah, so that he can do what? What's he supposed to make?
An idol.
Make an image, an idol. And who's the idol of? Yahweh. Disgusting, terrible. And so this is a very down period because they're thinking that they can make idols out of Yahweh, going against Torah completely. And then Danites come along, the tribe of Dan, they come along. And what does Micah's, first, a Levite comes along. And Micah's so excited because what does he have? Right, somebody from the tribe of Levi that's going to be able to be his priest. And so he hires this priest, doesn't he? Treats him like a son. But this son doesn't treat him like a father because some men from Dan, the tribe of Dan, come along. And what do? What do they decide? Go ahead.
Take the big silver ephod.
Yes, right. And who else? What else?
Levite.
And the Levite. Yeah, they say, this Levite has been. You'll have it better with us, more money. I learned this when I was about 12. Butter the palm. And so he goes with the Danites, and poor Micah loses his guy, his priest. And so that's a deplorable era in Israel. And we start out with that. There's a young man from Bethlehem of Judah. What happens to this young man from Bethlehem of Judah?
He departed.
He departs from Bethlehem. Somebody departs from Bethlehem. This Levite does. I'm sorry, it's the Levite that departs from Bethlehem. Doesn't sound real good. Because what happens next is deplorable. Okay, the next one, Judges 19. Ignore the country music. Okay, Judges 19. Do you remember that story? That's the very next story. And then again, it's awful. There's no king in Israel, and everybody does what is right in their own eyes. And what happens? Again, what's the same thing that happens in the first column? There's someone from Bethlehem, Bethlehem in Judah. What does he do?
He finds a concubine.
Oh yes, remember the story? He has a concubine who's run off to her hometown, which is Bethlehem. So he goes after her, gets her, stays with the father-in-law for quite a period of time, a few days, and then finally departs from Bethlehem. See, this is where it all goes downhill. And see, the author is not going to tell you leaving Bethlehem is not a good thing. He's just not going to tell you that. How does he tell you it's not a good thing, though?
Depart, and go to sojourn.
Yeah, right. He's going. What did you say?
Because whenever you read in the last two stories, when people departed from Bethlehem, bad things happen.
Bad things happen. And that is the primary way the author gets across that something is good or bad in the eyes of the Lord. Now, you do have your stories like David and Bathsheba, where it says, and what David did was evil in the eyes of the Lord. You have those stories. You also have Adam and Eve, very definitely that what they did was evil in the eyes of the Lord. But in a story like this, normally, the way you find out that something is not good is the consequences. That's when you know something is not good. And so he leaves Bethlehem, comes to Gibeah, and stays overnight in somebody's house. And what happens?
They want him.
Who wants him?
The
The Benjaminites circle the house. Where'd you hear this story before? And they call out, we want the man because we want to what? Have sex with him. Know him. Right. Where did you hear that story before?
Sodom and Gomorrah.
Ah, right. And if you put those two stories side by side, which we have done in the past, you will see that this story matches up with the Sodom and Gomorrah story over and over again. The same phrases and words are used in both stories, and that is purposeful. Just as these phrases and words that you see in these three stories it's purposeful. The author is doing it so that you associate the first paragraph of Ruth, the introduction to Ruth, with these last two stories of Judges. And the deplorable part of the story in Judges is that it's not Sodomites who act like Sodomites. It's who? Benjaminites, the tribe of Jacob, one of the tribes of Jacob, God's tribes. And so when we come to the Ruth story, a lot of people, and I've read in some commentaries, and my brother-in-law Joe and I, he's a teacher of Bible in his university, and we had a discussion about this, that there are scholars who say, well, what Elimelech did when leaving and going, it never tells you that he did the wrong thing. Well, no, the author is never going to tell you that. he very rarely does. He's going to do it by the consequences. What are the consequences that happen as soon as he has left Bethlehem? What's the next few verses say? He died, and his sons died. So now we know this is not good. And you see how the author has lined up the three stories. We have the Bethlehem trilogy. And so the author of Ruth has purposefully written it this way so that we associate it and we know this what he did was not good. And what time period then is the story of Ruth? When does it happen?
The time of Judges.
Yes, but specifically
At the end.
at the end, right here. Right here.
It would be like the third story if it was still in Judges.
Yeah.
The third. No,
Yes,
it
the
would be
third,
last story
right.
of
It would
Judges.
be the last story of Judges if it was still in Judges. Good. But I also told you that the author is not just going to make the setting Judges for Ruth. Another thing you're going to find out is the author purposefully places the setting of Ruth in Genesis. Yes, Genesis. In the time of the patriarchs. Now, at the end of our lesson, we're going to find out why. But right now, I'm just going to tantalize you. There's a reason for making the setting of Ruth in Genesis. But first off, I have to show you that how he does this. Okay? So that's in page 6. Would you go to that? And again, you have, we've got three. And so we're going to read it together this time instead of separately. Look what it says in Genesis 12:10. Would you read that for us, please, Joy? Because I didn't ask you to take a part in the play.
Now there was a famine in the land, so Abram went down to Egypt and sojourned there, for the famine was severe in the land.
Okay, this is the time of Abraham, the patriarch Abraham. Read the second one for us, please, Ray.
Now there was a famine in the land besides the former famine that was in the days of Abraham, and Isaac went to Gerar to sojourn.
What did you find that were in the first two that were the same?
Famine.
Famine in the land. There was a famine in the land and sojourned. The patriarchs sojourned. And notice how the author of Genesis links this second story about sojourning during a famine with the Abraham one. How does he link the two? How does the author?
The phrases and the words.
Yes, the phrases and the words, and what else? What does he say? That it's in the time of, just like in the time of the former time when Abraham sojourned. Mm-hmm. Right. Now Ruth comes along, and again, right in the introduction, look what the author does in order to tell you, go back to Genesis. Go ahead, read that for me, please, Vera.
In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land, and the man from Bethlehem in Judah went to sojourn Gur in the fields of Moab.
What's the word Gur?
Sojourn.
Yes, sojourn. It's the Hebrew word for just sojourn. I want you to see that it's the same thing each time. And so, what is the author telling you? What's the direction the author is giving you? Yeah, look back. look back. And we got to ask ourselves, why? Why does he do this? Yes, I love those words. Don't forget my 2 favorite questions. First is why. Second is, I don't know. I can't even comprehend what you just said. Could you repeat yourself, please? So you always have to ask me questions. In each case, something bad happens, doesn't it? Well, so what is that going to? What happens in the case of Abraham?
The Pharaoh tries to marry Sarah.
Yeah, the Pharaoh says, "What have you done?" And they get ceremonially, discharged from Egypt. It's not a good thing, and that's another thing people, scholars and theologians have debated about. Is this a good thing or a bad thing that Abraham did? And you can always tell by the consequences. And he is thrown out. His name is mud in Egypt. The second one is Isaac. Where does he go to sojourn? Gerar, which is a part of the land that will in the future become Philistine country. And he's doing just like his father. What happens to him when he goes into Philistine land? What does the king do? He spies out his window. He looks down below in the courtyard. And there is Isaac and his supposed sister. But they're talking. They are making out. They are making love. And he says, that doesn't happen between brother and sister. And so he knows. So what does he do?
Why did you do this?
Why did you do this? And throw them out. Leave. Mm-hmm. You put us in jeopardy. So the consequences tell us this is not a good thing. So again, the author is telling us what in Ruth 1:1. And first, before you answer that, Denise, would you read Ruth 1:1?
In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land, and a man from Bethlehem in Judah went to sojourn in the fields of Moab.
Aha. So same wording. This is purposeful. You got to watch for this. You are not going to find it just with a cursory reading of scriptures. You're not going to find it when you fill your evenings up with, what's your favorite show?
Sleep.
Yeah, not during my class.
That either, right?
Okay, so the author is definitely telling us between this story or allusion back to Genesis and between the Ruth introduction and Judges, he's definitely telling us what about Elimelech?
There's going to be a bad consequence.
Yes, that this was not the right thing to do. You don't leave Bethlehem. You don't leave the Promised Land. And that's what he did. And so the consequences are death. Right? So now I want to show you something else. Oh, God. I'm going to tell you about this this next page because I promise. No, I have to I-15, don't I?
Yes.
Oh, yes. The time is in. How could the time escape so badly? Hello, guys. And you're not 8:15. Oh, yes. Lord, good. What did you? 8:15.
I still haven't had dinner.
Yeah, not 9:15, not 9:15, 8:15. Okay, so we have time for the next page, and it won't. The time passes quickly in this class, so you'll be okay. Again, I want to reiterate that the setting of Ruth is also, according to our author, the setting of Ruth is Genesis, the time of the patriarchs. And I want to show you that, and we'll be seeing that over and over in the study. But tonight I want to show you that Ruth is built on the shoulders of Genesis by comparing something that happens in, 3 things that happen in Genesis with what happens in Ruth. Now, those of you who spent 6 years with me studying Genesis, do you remember the 3 principal themes in Genesis? Land, seed, blessing. 3 principal. If you go through the book and you want to know what in the world does this story have to do with what's been going on in Genesis. Just ask yourself, does it have to do with land or seed or blessing? And then you'll know it. So, because the story of Judah and Tamar, where she dresses up like a prostitute and he's marrying, a Canaanite, you wonder what in the world is going on in this story. And right before it is the Joseph story. Right after it's the Joseph story, it seems like just such an intrusion. And what does the Judah story have to do? What is it, land or seed or blessing? Seed. It's going to be the seed. Perez is going to come from that union between Tamar and Judah. And of course, Perez is in the line of Jesus, but even before that, David and Jesus. You're going to see that in the genealogy at the end. So you wonder what things are going on. Well, the same thing here. Ruth, it has to do with land, seed, blessing. Let's see it in this paper. I want you to read back and forth and find. Now, you'll see on the left, and this is page 7, please. You'll see on the left 3 references to Genesis. One reference has to do with land. You see that in bold print. Blessing in the second reference. Seed in the third reference. You're going to look for, don't look at the answer, you're going to look for these same 3 items in the Ruth section. And just either put land, seed, blessing next to it, or draw arrows, whatever your lines, whatever you want to do, or color code it like I do. So go right ahead and read them in your groups.
Are we doing Genesis?
Yeah, go ahead.
Want me to do that? Okay. Genesis 12:1. Now Yahweh said to Abram, "Go forth from your country, and from your relatives, and from your father's house to the land which I will show you." And you do them all. Or Genesis 12:2-3. "And I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you, and make your name great, and so you shall be a blessing. And I will bless those who bless you, and the one who curses you I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth will be blessed." Genesis 15:5. "And Yahweh took Abram outside and said, Now look toward the heavens, and count the stars if you are able to count them. And Yahweh said to him, So shall your seed be."
You can go to 2:4, and then I'll take the 4 each.
Okay. The people of the town say to Boaz, "May your house be like the house of Perez, seed, whom Tamar bore to Judah through the seed, which Yahweh will give you by this man." So Naomi departed from the place where she was, and her 2 daughters-in-law with her, and they went on the way to return to the land of Judah. Now behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem and said to the reapers, "May Yahweh be with you." And they said to him, "May Yahweh bless you."
Now these are the generations of Perez. Perez begot Hezron begot Ram, and Ram begot Amminadab, somebody. And Amminadab begot Nahshon, and Nahshon begot Salmon, and Salmon begot Boaz. And Boaz begot Obed, and Obed begot Jesse, and Jesse begot David. That's
Yes, even though it doesn't say the word, that's seed. Yes.
Then the woman said to Naomi, blessed is Yahweh who has not left you without a kinsman redeemer today." That's blessing. Then he said to the kinsman redeemer, "Naomi, who has come back from the fields of Moab, has to sell a piece of the land which belonged to our brother Elimelech. So I thought to inform you, saying, buy it, the land, before those who are sitting here and before the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, redeem it. But if not, tell me that I may know. For there is no one but you to redeem it. And I am after you." I am so, this like, I get inside my spirit just jumping around.
Doesn't it? I get the same thing happens to me when I'm reading and I can see all these connections.
You can see everything. After I started getting excited, I found myself down. Because we know who the kinsman redeemer is. It's like, oh my God, look. So this is
Are you starting to see the connections then between the story of Ruth and Genesis? You're going to see it more and more as we go through the story of Ruth. You're going to see these connections back to Genesis, and we have to ask ourselves, why? Why are there these connections? Let's we will answer it before 8:15. Ruth 4:12. We have, may your house be like the house of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah through the seed which Yahweh will give you by this young woman. What's this about? Seed. But there's also something else. Did anybody notice what it is? She says, may you, or somebody says that it's a blessing. So there's a blessing there also. And who does the town, who do the people of the town identify Ruth with? Tamar, a matriarch, the wife of Judah, the big guy. Yes, the important one of the 12 sons of Jacob. And so she's being identified with a matriarch. Aha. Okay, Ruth 1:7. We have what?
Land.
It's the land. We're going to return to the land of Judah. It's all about that land, isn't it? Because the whole story is about whose land? Yeah. Yes, Elimelech's land, and now Naomi's land. It's the land, it's the land, it's the land, isn't it? And then Ruth 2:4, we see another what? Blessing, right. And then, of course, with the genealogy, that wasn't too hard. What do we see? Seed, right. And then Ruth 4:14. We have another blessing. You know, when you read through Ruth, I believe, now I know I counted it, and I'm pretty sure, there are blessings all through the book in every single chapter. And if you want to, you can look it up and underline the blessings and count how many. Does anybody have an educated guess how many blessings there are in the book of Ruth? Educated guess. Oh, good.
58, I don't know, 24.
Okay. I'm not going to tell you. The reason why? I want you to turn off. Of course, I'm doing a switch instead of a push button here, but that tells you how old I am. And then, of course, we have in Ruth 4:3 the land. The author creates these flashbacks unobtrusively, doesn't he? Because he expects us to know Genesis so well that we get it. And so he doesn't come out and say to you, does he? This is all about Genesis. This is a rewriting of the story of Genesis, does he? But he's identifying people in Ruth with the patriarchs. Particularly Ruth, and matriarchs. Because what does Ruth do? What does Ruth do that's like the patriarch Abraham?
She leaves her home.
She leaves her home and family. And who's her God now? Yahweh. Yeah. So we have a specific purpose why the author then is alluding back to the patriarchs and matriarchs of Genesis. And let's look at the next page to find the answer. Finally, want to find the answer. Have you been waiting with bated breath? Somebody said a long time ago, and I hope it's true, is that my teaching is like reading a mystery, where they hold back on everything until the very end, a punchline. Okay, Deuteronomy, remember that's an instrument, that's part of our symphony. No one born of a forbidden union. This is forbidden union. Did you hear that? Let's see what a forbidden union is. Even to the 10th generation, none of his descendants may enter the assembly of the Lord. No, who? Or? What is Ruth?
Yeah, they mentioned it once or twice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. All the way through. Did you see that?
Yes.
Just about every chapter. Shit, it's the Moabitess. It's the Moabitess. And there's a reason, because they want you to think back to Deuteronomy and what's up. Oh, no Ammonite or Moabite, that's a forbidden union, may enter the assembly of the Lord, even to the 10th generation. None of them shall enter. He repeats it. None shall enter the assembly of the Lord forever, because they did not meet you with bread and with water on the way when you came out of Egypt, and because they hired against you Balaam the son of Beor from Pethor of Mesopotamia to curse you. And what story do you think is upcoming in my Bible study? Balaam. Yes, we're gonna wait. We're gonna go because we want to see, what they did to instigate God's anger, so that He says it's a forbidden union. Now, it's a forbidden union. Who marries this Moabitess? Boaz. So now we have to figure out, how could Boaz think he can do that? And not only that, look what I have next to it. The next column. It says what?
Genealogy.
And who's in this genealogy? Boaz, who marries what? A Moabitess. So who's in the genealogy of that special king, that Davidic, that king that is pictures Jesus Christ? That's in the line of Jesus Christ. Who's in that union? Who's in that genealogy? A Moabite.
Rahab the harlot and Tamar who acted.
Right. But this is just so close to David, and so everybody knew everybody's genealogy. Genealogies fill up the Bible. We've looked at enough of them that we should know. And here is a Moabitess, and she's in David's genealogy. So really what the book of Ruth is a vindication of David's genealogy, isn't it? How can a Moabitess be in the book? Well, what is the author pointing back to? The patriarchs and the matriarchs of Genesis. And everybody here in this story is going to be a repeat, an image, a mirror-like image of those patriarchs and matriarchs, including who? Ruth. Now, if she is acting like, and she is being pictured like, a matriarch from Genesis, right? And a patriarch even, because she looks like Abraham, then can she be in the line of David? She certainly can. She certainly can. So, this picturing back to the time of Genesis is to give vindication of David's genealogy, which has a man who marries a Moabitess in it. Got that? Now, what's really interesting is we have this kinsman redeemer who takes her from being that forbidden person, and he brings her into the family of Israel, doesn't he? And he's the what? Kinsman redeemer.
It's less than 10 generations.
And the thing is that here we have a kinsman redeemer who takes the forbidden and brings it into the family of God. Who else is a kinsman redeemer?
Jesus.
And what does he do?
Redeems us.
Because we're the forbidden
Moabites.
Yes.
Yes.
That he brings into the family of God.
The grace of God.
The grace of God. Shall we pray? Father in heaven, thank you, thank you, thank you. We love you, Lord. You gave us Jesus, who is our kinsman redeemer. We were the forbidden ones. We were the Gentiles. And you brought us into your family. And we are so grateful. You chose us, Lord. And we are grateful, grateful, grateful. And we ask you, Lord, that you would help us to be Ruth-like, leaving behind all the trappings of the world, the things that tied us to the world. And now that we are in your family, acting like a member of your family, as Ruth did. In Jesus' precious name, amen.
Amen.
So I took you in mind, Joy. I knew that you were growling in the stomach, and I stopped 5 minutes early. And so thank you for joining us and listening. Now I have to watch my, it says stop recording. Bye-bye.